In our very first story, President Akufo-Addo has named former Attorney General Martin Amidu as Ghana's first special prosecutor. His appointment will, however, have to be approved by Parliament before he can assume office. Announcing the nomination at the Flagstaff House on Thursday, President Akufo-Addo said he's convinced Mr. Amidu has what it takes to deliver on the job and urged Parliament to approve him.
I've accepted the Attorney General's nomination and will in turn submit for Parliament's approval when it reconvenes on the 23rd of January 2018 for its first meeting of this new year, the name of Martin Alamisi Burns Kaiser Amidu to be the first special prosecutor under the law. I have done so because I'm fully convinced that Mr. Martin Amidu, a prominent legal personality who held the high office of Attorney General of the Republic in the government of the late President Professor John Evans Atta Mills, has the requisite integrity, competence, courage, and independence of character to discharge effectively the responsibilities of this new office. Indeed, the Supreme Court itself has had cause to commend the nominee for his public spiritedness in the case of Amidu versus Attorney General, Waterville and Wyoming, when the court, per the respected judge, Doche JSC, had this to say about him, and I quote, "The role of the plaintiff, Martin Alamisi Amidu, a distinguished former Attorney General of this country, needs to be highly commended, as was done in the lead judgment of the court. The plaintiff, in my opinion, must be highly commended for his vigilante role in protecting the wanton dissipation of the public purse," unquote. The court also, in a related suit, had this to say about the nominee. Quote, "The plaintiff, that is to say Mr. Amidu, is to be commended for his public spiritedness, which has fueled his meticulous and industrious presentation of this case," unquote. I can also personally vouch for his public spiritedness. We were on opposite sides in a series of landmark constitutional cases in the period leading up to the years of the Fourth Republic, well known to students of constitutional law, which helped shape the evolution of the Constitution of the Fourth Republic. As Deputy Attorney General as he then was, he conducted those cases with the fairness which should be a cardinal feature of the conduct of any self-respecting lawyer. Mr. Amidu has indicated his willingness to accept the appointment. I thus have the honor to submit to Parliament, when it reconvenes, the name of Martin Alamisi Burns Kaiser Amidu for its approval for appointment as special prosecutor.
The President outlined the key performance indicators expected of the special prosecutor.
In his manifesto for the 2016 general elections, the establishment of the Office of Special Prosecutor, an independent, non-partisan body with the relevant professional capability to lead the fight and hold public officials, past and present, accountable for their stewardship of public finances. The enactment of the Office of Special Prosecutor Act, Act 663/2018, by an MPP-dominated Parliament, is the first stage in the fulfillment of that pledge. Satisfied of the constitutionality and propriety of the legislation, I assented to it on the 2nd of January 2018. The Act, pursuant to Section 13(3), provides for the nomination by the Attorney General of a person fit for appointment by the President of the Republic, subject to approval by Parliament by an absolute majority of its members, to perform the functions of the office. The Special Prosecutor, once confirmed by Parliament, will carry an extraordinary responsibility, independently and impartially, to fight corruption. The Special Prosecutor, as the Act states in its preamble, and I quote, shall have full authority and control over the investigation, initiation, and conduct of proceedings of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses involving public officers and politically exposed persons in the performance of their functions, as well as persons in the private sector involved in the commission of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses, unquote. The remit of the office, as you can see, is broad and challenging.
We will shortly be bringing you reactions from the anti-corruption community regarding this appointment. But before then, let's take a look at who Martin Amidu is. Now, Martin Amidu, he was Attorney General and Minister for Justice from 2011 to 2012. Now, he served as the Deputy Attorney General in the last 4 years of the Provisional National Defense Council military regime that was under Rawlings. Martin Amidu is a member of the National Democratic Congress. Indeed, you can describe him as once a leading member of the National Democratic Congress. And he served in the government of Jerry Rawlings as Deputy Attorney General from 1993 to 2001. So he has occupied the position, or he has been in the Attorney General's department for a while now. In the December 2000 presidential elections, he contested as the running mate of John Evans Atta Mills, the late John Evans Atta Mills. And now there's also a bit of quite a bit of a side to Martin Amidu, which has to do with the controversies he has been involved in, not as in a bad way, but yeah, he's been there. He was also Minister for the Interior in 2010 under President Mills, and we all do remember how he exited the government at the time. Now, Martin Amidu was relieved of his post on Thursday, January 19, 2012, by President John Evans Atta Mills for misconduct. That issue has been debated several times. Now, Martin Amidu single-handedly challenged the legality of the payment of 51.2 million cedis judgment to Alfred Woyome, and he went all the way to the Supreme Court. He never backed down on that case. Now, Martin Amidu is on record to have called for a vote against the NDC led by John Mahama, citing their failure to retrieve monies paid businessman Alfred Woyome. This was just before the 2016 election. So that is a bit about Martin Amidu, who has been named as the Special Prosecutor. Now, former President Rawlings has congratulated Mr. Martin Amidu on his appointment as a Special Prosecutor at the Office of the Independent Prosecutor. I'll bring you his statement, and this statement dated January 11, 2018. Rawlings congratulates Martin Amidu. So former President Rawlings has congratulated Mr. Martin Amidu on his appointment as a Special Prosecutor at the Office of the Independent Prosecutor. Mr. Rawlings, who was hopeful that Parliament would approve the appointment, said the President couldn't have made a better choice. The President, by this appointment, is raising above partisanship and recognized a highly principled citizen. Mr. Amidu is proving to be a fearless anti-corruption crusader whose pursuit of truth and justice has won him national admiration. I call on all Ghanaians to offer the appointee the required support and information in pursuit of what will undoubtedly be a challenging role, the former president said. Flight Lieutenant Rawlings urged Ghanaians to pray for God's guidance and strength for Mr. Amidu as he works to restore the wheels of justice. And it's signed by Kobna Ando Amuakwa, who is with the Communications Directorate of the Office of the former president. All right, so as I indicated earlier, there have been quite a number of reactions that have been coming through. Let's take some of the reactions right now. We have Dr. Emmanuel Akwete, the Executive Director of IDA. He says, I think the President has demonstrated that it is national interest first in somebody who can do the job. I also think his appointment sends a signal across the political divide that the President has not acted in partisan interests. That's by Dr. Emmanuel Akwete, the Executive Director of IDA. Now, the NDC has also been reacting. Let's see what the national organizer of the NDC has been saying. He says Martin Amidu is a Ghanaian who has been appointed. He's a lawyer. He served as Attorney General in terms of criteria for occupying the post. He qualifies. So that's an endorsement of the position. Now, one of the issues that have come up in recent times is the fact that the minority in Parliament has felt that there was going to be a witch hunt of the members, but with this appointment, you wonder how exactly they want to react to it, and if this is anything to go by, suggests that they are happy with the endorsement. Now, still ahead in the bulletin, we're going to get a reaction from the Ghana Integrity Initiative on the appointment of Martin Amidu as the first special prosecutor. That will be pending his approval by Parliament. Stay tuned, we'll be back in a bit. All right, so you're welcome to join News Prime. We're staying with our top story for this evening is President Akufo-Addo's appointment of Martin Amidu, the former Attorney General Martin Amidu, and citizen vigilante as a special prosecutor. We've been getting reactions coming through from across the country, from across the political divide. And right now in the studio, I have with me the Corporate Affairs Manager of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, Michael Boadi. And good evening to you and welcome. Thank you for making time to join us here in the studio. So is this appointment what the anti-corruption campaigners have been expecting?
Well, the anti-corruption campaigners, we are expecting somebody who fits the criteria.
Does he fit the criteria?
He perfectly fits the criteria.
What makes him the perfect choice?
One, the criteria says that the person should be somebody who has proven knowledge of anti-corruption or had fought corruption over the time, person of integrity. The person should have a minimum of 12 years on the bar. And then he should be somebody who does not owe allegiance to other countries, and so on and so forth. And I believe that Mr. Martin Amidu fits that criteria.
What excites you about his appointment?
What excites us, well, I would say that what makes us happy is that, well, so far the president has gone beyond his political divide or political party and reached out to other persons and looked at the national interest first, and that is what is interesting.
All right, but is it really the case of national interest? Because Martin Amidu has been known, at least in the last few years, to be on the case of the National Democratic Congress, which party he belongs to. And so people are going to say, well, he's already has an agenda against the NDC. So it just feeds into the narrative of the NDC that you're bringing in somebody, the president will bring in somebody to just witch hunt them.
Well, I'm not too sure, because I always say this thing. There are just so many people within the NDC. But I guess Mr. Amidu had gone after just some few people, particularly Mr. Wyoming. So if you do the statistics or you work the maths, it doesn't really support that argument. I mean, how many people had held position or had held position in the NDC? Quite a lot of them. But did Martin Amidu go after all of them? No. So how then do you make a case that he's going after the NDC? No, I don't think so. I think that he's gone after persons whom, to the best of his knowledge, had abused the trust that the state reposed in them, and that's it. And I'm sure if it is easy for him to go after persons within his own political party, then you can imagine what he would do if persons in the NPP do the wrong thing.
But that's the question. Yes, you would want to imagine that he would want to go after the people in the, if he's been able to do all that to people in the NDC, then you can expect that he's going to do same to people in the NPP. But can we really expect that to happen? Because he's been appointed by this current government.
Well, you see, it is not about who appoints you. It's about what agenda that you have, i.e., what is your objective so far as the anti-corruption or the fight against corruption is concerned. And I believe that he has proven that he is for Ghana and is the interest of the nation that he has at heart and nothing more. And all the fights, I mean, he spent his own resources to go after Mr. Wyoming. He spent his own resources to go after the other judgment debt cases. So why would you doubt his commitment to the fight against corruption? Right. I have no evidence to support many of the people who are expressing anxiety about his appointment.
You mentioned the fact that he spent his own resources to go after businessman Alfred Wyoming. Now that he is the special prosecutor, don't you think that it will be, or would he have to recuse himself or stay away from cases having to do with Wyoming because his position is already known on it?
Well, I think that the law, what does the law says? I mean, we need to interrogate the law. I mean, I don't believe that I mean, when it comes to Wyoming, we can cite him for conflict of interest or anything. He may be passionate about it, but was he fighting his personal interest, or it was the state interest that he was fighting for? If it's the state interest, then he can continue to do it, because you see, the issue of conflict of interest is about his personal interest against his national or the state interest. And so if in the case of Wyoming, he's pursuing the state interest, then why can't he go ahead with it? He does not need to recuse himself if he's fighting for the state. But in the case, if it is proven that it is a personal score, then I'm afraid he may have to recuse himself. But that, you see, his appointment does not take away the powers of the Attorney General to prosecute. He's actually exercising a delegated function of the Attorney General. The Article 88 of the Constitution still stands. It has not been amended by the act that sets up the Office of the Special Prosecutor. So therefore, the Attorney General can still prosecute the Wyoming case if the law or the issues of conflict of interest is raised about Mr. Martin Amidu.
What are some of the first cases you expect him to take up?
I cannot hazard a guess now, because there are a lot of cases we've been told that are pending. The thing about the law that sets up the special prosecutor is that all the corruption cases that are pending would be offloaded to him to handle. So, I mean, his sole objective is to fight corruption. So whichever corruption cases that had been investigated, and let's not forget that you also have investigative powers as well. So all the corruption cases that are ongoing, he may decide to choose any of them. What makes him special and independent is that he determines which case he handles.
What are some of the challenges you feel that he is likely to encounter?
Well, the first challenge is the issue of support from the citizenry. You see, we've been calling for the right to information bill. We've been calling to the right because, you see, the special prosecutor cannot do it all. He will need information from the citizenry. But how do citizens access the information when they don't have the wherewithal? The right to information bill ought to be passed as a complementary law to support the work of the OSP. Other than that, well, they will do like we've done since independence. We always believe that, look, the fight against corruption can be done from the top. It cannot be won from the top. If you look at the NACAP realizes that, look, this approach to fighting corruption from the top is not helpful, and therefore we must get the support of all stakeholders. And that is why the objectives of if you look at the objectives of the NACAP, it looks at educating the public and getting the public. One of the objectives looks at educating the public and getting the public involved in the fight against corruption. And I believe that, and if we also look at the functions of the OSP, that is the Office of the Special Prosecutor, it recognizes the angle of educating the public and getting the public along. Now, no matter how much you equip the public with information and knowledge, if you don't equip them with, or don't give them the legal backing, i.e. the right to information, the witness protection, the Conduct of Public Officers Bill, I think you've disarmed the public from supporting the work of the OSP. And that is why we are calling for we are actually appealing to government that as soon as practicable, they should lay before Parliament the Right to Information, Conduct of Public Officers Bill, and the Witness Protection Bill to enable citizens to contribute to the fight against corruption and the work of the OSP.
Right, thank you very much. Michael Boadi. Michael Boadi is the Public Affairs Manager, the Corporate Affairs Manager of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, and he's been sharing his thoughts with us on the appointment of Martin Amidu as the first special prosecutor. Now, moving on to other stories. 7 months after the gruesome murder of Major Maxwell Adam Mahama, some 14 persons accused of the crime are to go on trial from February 15. The soldier was lynched in May 2017 by a mob at the central regional town of Dinchrawasi on suspicion that he was an armed robber. An Accra District Court on Thursday committed the suspects, including the assemblyman for the area, William Barr, to trial at the High Court after Chief State Attorney Elvin Kilsing presented exhibits to be used as evidence against them to the court. Also included in the exhibits were 2 guns said to have been fired at Major Mahama and his iPhone. Joseph Fakable was in court for Joy News.
Cash and food items from family and friends were handed to police officers shortly after the district court had committed the 14 persons to trial. Proceedings had commenced with Chief State Attorney Evelyn Kilson reading the bill of indictment. She told the court 13 of the 14 individuals had been identified in a video recording which forms part of the 53 pieces of evidence presented to the court. Other items on the list included pellets, empty cartridges, pictures from crime scene, 2 guns, partly burnt shirt, cell phone belonging to Major Maxwell Mahama, among others. The state will also rely on 15 witnesses in the course of the trial. All accused persons were offered an opportunity to react to the accusations against them, but none took the offer. Magistrate Ebenezer Kwekwansa said an assessment of the bill of indictment reveals there is ample evidence against the 14 persons and therefore committed them to trial at the High Court. Lawyer for the 14, George Bernard Shaw, told pressmen his clients maintained they are innocent.
Initially, they were really low, but as you yourself can bear testimony to, with the passage of days, the aspirants are coming back, especially when they saw that some of their colleagues were released and discharged. So there is always a hope. I mean, it depends on what evidence they say they have. There's no 2 ways as to the fact that the major was murdered in cold blood. The essence of this is to find who were the culprits and whether they had the intent to kill as the law demands.
And you are clear in your mind that the 14 have nothing to do with the crime?
Those are my instructions.
The trial of the accused persons at the High Court will commence on February 15, 2018.
All right, you're watching Joy News Prime, and top story this evening, President Akufo-Addo has named former Attorney General and citizen vigilante Martin Amidu as special prosecutor. Let's go on to Twitter and see how people are reacting to this appointment. On Twitter, he's actually trending at #1. And the comments that are coming, quite a number of interesting comments coming there. Later on Joy News Interactive, would also be bringing you what people have been saying about the appointment on Facebook. But right now on Twitter, and this is the image you get. It was actually the official image that was given us from the president. You can see Martin Amidu there smiling in that pose. Let's get on to Twitter now and see the comments that are coming through. Martin Amidu, as I indicated earlier, he's trending at #1. And let's read some of the comments. So we have someone, there are also quite a number of memes out there. Puni and Woyome, when they heard about Martin Amidu's appointment as special prosecutor. And then we have this image too. Osudoku Sofache says, you see where Martin Amidu ensued buttons they reach, you take 20 pesos, self, your body go barb you. It means you're going to be in trouble even if you take 20 pesos. And Dan Burfy says the office was created for Martin Amidu. Can't imagine a better fit for the position. And these are some other tweets. And the president himself is trending. Now, that Boadi says, Woyome just sent Martin Amidu a friend request. He declined. The whole world, Woyome make hot. He make hot past the bean seller in that day saying. Right, so we're going to be bringing you a lot more of the reactions that are coming on Twitter as well as on Facebook. Do stay tuned. Now, scores of makeshift structures along rail lines in Accra have been pulled down in a massive exercise by the Ghana Railway Company Limited in collaboration with the Accra Metropolitan Assembly. The structures destroyed in the exercise on Thursday morning serve as homes and shops for squatters and traders in the vicinity of the Kwame Nkrumah interchange. Some of them who spoke to Joy News vowed to vote against the governing New Patriotic Party in the 2020 election. My colleague Maxwell Agbagba was there and our reports.
This exercise, we are told, started at dawn today. Hundreds of, structures, makeshift structures, I should say, which serve as buildings, as place of abode for a lot of the people who live along the road line very close to Circle here, have all been pulled down by this moving machine. Now, if you walk through buildings that have been pulled down, you can see personal possessions like mattresses, personal effects like clothing. I mean, everything that you expect to find in a home, you'll find it here at the place of the demolition or the decongestion exercise. We are told that this exercise will be replicated along other rail lines at places like Aveno. We hear also the team from here will be moving to Alajo. Behind me, you can see some smoke in the background, some fire officers trying to douse the flames. The fire is moving to some adjoining structures. I have the man who is in charge of the operation here, Chief Superintendent Prosecutor.
We've arrested an arsonist who set 3 separate fires, started the fire.
Okay.
Operating along the wall side, and we've arrested him.
Okay.
And he will be put before court earliest. And other people who also resisted, this lawful exercise were also arrested.
50 meters away from the rail lines here, all these structures, usually in the evening when you come here, this place is actually a hive of activity. So you find chop bars, you find eateries, you find pubs, you find drinking spots, you find video game centers, all of them here at this place. These structures have all been completely demolished.
Only my shirt, these things in my own right now. I don't get anything again. Why? I be government too. I be government. I be voting boy. I be voting boy for MPP. Why my town people come do me this?
Okay, this is a story building where we do our business. There's a restaurant there. There's an office complex here. There are other buildings up where people stay. Because we are all Ghanaians, we vote to Nana to come. What they are doing this to us. We change our hand because Nana will not come again. What they Nana doing there, Nana will not come again. We change our hand. So let's 2021 years. We will change our hand.
I live here. Here they make business. They do my everything for here.
So what you go do right now?
Right now, I don't know where I'm going safe.
In other news, 2 police officers have been killed at Drobonso in the Setre, Afram Plains district of the Ashanti region. The 2 officers stationed at Drobonso were shot by armed men who blocked the Drobonso-Kumewu road on Thursday morning. The attack, suspected to have been staged by a nomadic herdsman, comes on the heels of an ambush of 4 security officers earlier this week. Deputy Ashanti Region Police Commander DCOP Fred Edu Enim says the attacks call for review of police operational procedures, adding that they will be thoroughly investigated.
It's unfortunate, and this is not the first time these attacks have taken place, except to say that we didn't expect the attacks as happening almost within the same period of barely a week or so. So, as the command have decided to beef up security and also to intensify our investigations. In fact, we are poised to find out who are behind all these things and why these regular attacks within the week. We need to review our operations. We need to re-strategize, just as it happened in Agogo. You see, now the security situation in Agogo is being reviewed. So we have to do the same at Drobonsu here, as far as this occurrence is concerned.
There are fears that this attack could have been carried out by nomadic herdsmen who are probably being pushed away from Agogo. You are the expert. Does it have any link as we speak now?
Well, for now, we cannot hastily jump into that conclusion. We need to investigate. We need to. This is an information that has also come to our notice, but we need to investigate this matter to find out whether they are really Fulani herdsmen or other persons who are not of any Fulani extraction.
President Akufo-Addo has meanwhile promised government support to the police administration in its quest to pursue the armed men who shot and killed the officers and injured a third officer. Director of Police Operations COP George Kufu-Dampare, who delivered the message on behalf of the IGP to the bereaved family at Kumawu, says the police administration will do everything possible to bring suspects who killed the officers to book. Ohiming Teya has been following the story and joins us over the telephone. Hello, Ohiming. I know you've been doing the rounds with the police team. What more can you tell us about this latest attack?
Thank you, Israel. It is the second within 1 week that has happened to the security operatives. The first attack was the one recorded in Agogo, where 3 military officers and a police officer came under attack from nomadic herdsmen who laid ambush. And the second one, involving the 2 police officers, an inspector and a constable, the 2 of them died at the spot. It occurred when the armed men, I'm told there are about 8 of them, used logs to block the Kumawu-Drobonsu road. And at that point in time, it was around 4:50 a.m. And when the vehicles started to pass by, they accosted them, stopped them, and also subjected them to all manner of treatment. So in the process, the police vehicle pulled up. The men in the vehicle were actually officers on police routine operations. So they were attacked by the armed men. Some of them were wearing AK-47 assault rifles, and later they took to the bush. It actually happened inside the Bonfobri Forest Reserve. So as we speak now, the attackers managed to escape. But COP Dampare says the president will do everything in his mind to ensure that the police administration to ensure that the perpetrators are brought to book. He wouldn't talk so much on how the president will do this, but he says that the police administration will also do everything in his power to follow up this issue and ensure that everyone involved in this dark act is brought to book. He made this mention when he met one of the victims' family at Kumawu, apparently the inspector, to commiserate with the family. And he says that beyond this, police will continue to follow up. But later in the day, when we followed up to the scene and also to the Efficacy Hospital, where the third police officer has been on admission, the regional police commander, COP Kenyabua, told me that the police officer who was on admission has actually been discharged. But when we went to the hospital, he was responding to treatment at that time. So he was discharged to go home. But another aside of the story is the fact that a suspect has been arrested at Instituta Kwamai. He was arrested in possession of a shotgun and unspent live ammunition. So police commander COP Ken Yabua says that the police are yet to interrogate this man to see his involvement in the Kwamai Kumabu Drobonso robbery incident, which saw two police officers losing their lives in that regard, Israel.
All right, thank you very much, Oheming. They're bringing us that update. We're taking a break here now. Minority Chief Whip Muntaka Mubarak has justified his decision to push for a parliamentary probe into the cash for seed scandal at the Ministry of Trade and Industry. Parliament last week at an emergency meeting approved a motion for parliamentary probe into the scandal. Appearing before the 5-member committee investigating the scandal, Mr. Mubarak said there has been too much contradictions about what exactly happened.
Why did I decide to give the ministry the opportunity to ask this? Because the time I got this document, I was very certain that monies were collected, even when there was denial. All I wanted to do was that to caution the ministry. Because, for example, if the statement that came from the ministry on the 21st was the response I got from the committee, I want to believe that I wouldn't even be here. Because the issue would have been that, oh, they've disclosed that they've collected some money. But maybe the issue is that, what authority did you use in taking that money? Can you make sure that you regularize how you collect money and make sure that when you spend them, you account for them how our financial regulations have indicated? But unfortunately, because of the denial and on, and now so many doubts and so many confusion I want to believe not only me, but every ordinary Ghanaian who is following, it simply tells me that our financial regulations might have been breached, because if they collected the money and in a radio interview said that they have handed over all the money to the foundation, when in fact in the ministry's statement, they emphatically stated that they collected the money and issued official receipt. You can only refuse official receipt to cover public money. So once they did that and collected the money at the Ministry of Trade, I saw that as public money, as money that are supposed to be regulated with our financial regulations. And that was my initial concern until all this thing went on and on. So
Muntaka Mubarak also defended the minority's decision to seek an emergency recall of the House to consider the motion for a parliamentary probe.
Looking at the present, the issues that we had with time, in my understanding with my colleagues, 77 of them who helped sign, thought that that time, one, was not conducive for us to be able to do this without disrupting the budget process, which all of us were desirous of getting to appropriation before we rose. That is one. Two, if you remember when this issue broke up, there were issues that the presidency has written to ask the Minister of Trade to respond. So it was our hope that, well, let's wait and also see whether the presidency will deal with the matter in a manner that all of us will be satisfied. So it also compounded the issues. So let's wait and see. So having waited until it was 21st, I thought that 20th, 21st, it would be too unfair to the House to try to introduce a matter that you know, even what is before the House itself, is struggling to finish. And because I've been in the leadership, I attend religiously the conclave meetings with Mr. Speaker every morning. And I see how all of us were making effort to get the business of the House that we had to finish. But let me say, with the greater respect, the Constitution, when in Article 112, decided to give the power of 15% of Parliament to be able to determine what is emergency, I thought that it is for a good reason. It is for a reason that the House, with just 41 of the 275, could call the House. And
Ranking Member of Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee, Samuel Kudus-Ablakwa, said the scandal amounts to extortion of money from expatriate business persons, which is bad for the image of the country.
The fundamental issue has to do with whether it is appropriate, whether it is moral, whether it is ethical, whether it is legal for access to our president, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, to be offered to the highest bidder. It is my contention that you cannot sell the prestige of the office of president. You cannot say that you are organizing an awards and that if you pay $100,000 or $75,000, you will be guaranteed access to the president, first by sitting by him, and secondly by having an exclusive private dinner with the president. It is my considered view, humbly, Mr. Chairman, that there is everything wrong with this arrangement. It is not appropriate. It cannot be justified in any way.
And in the headlines, President Akufo-Addo has named former Attorney General and citizen vigilante Martin Amidu the special prosecutor. The appointment is however pending approval by Parliament. Trial of 14 suspects, including an assemblyman accused of murdering Major Maxwell Mahama at Boadi in May last year, set to begin February 15. Their lawyer, however, maintains they are innocent of the crime. 2 police officers killed at Drobonso in the Ashanti region in an attack being linked to recent ambush of 4 security personnel by suspected nomadic herdsmen at Agogo. The chief of the town is accusing the herdsmen of being behind this attack and is vowing to lead his people to drive them out. In business, government planning to borrow a little over 11 billion cedis in bonds and treasury bills for the first quarter of this year. And squatters whose structures were pulled down in massive demolition exercise along rail lines in Accra Thursday morning vowed to vote against the governing New Patriotic Party in the 2020 election.